Hey everyone, thank you for coming. I am Nicole van der Hoeven. I'm a developer advocate at K6, and a few months ago we joined Grafana Labs. This is testing with K6 and Grafana, better together. It's a love story. So in mid-June, just 3 months ago, or 4 now actually, K6 joined the Grafana Labs family. Many people didn't quite understand what the connection was between K6 and Grafana, but I thought it made a lot of sense. If you've read the Site Reliability Engineering book by Google, they talk about 4 golden signals that we should measure. We should measure in a system: latency, traffic, errors, and saturation. But load testing provides only 3 of those. That's latency, traffic, and errors. But it doesn't show saturation, and it also doesn't give us visibility into the system. Grafana brings observability, and K6 brings data. So I think they work really well together, which is why we've been using each other's products for a few years now, even before there was any talk of an acquisition. So we don't have a lot of time, so I'm just going to show you how to get started with K6, and I'll jump in with a demo. I guess the very first thing that I should mention here is if you don't have it installed already, if you're on Mac OS, just do a brew install K6, or we have, depending on your operating system, we will have other instructions at our docs page. That's k6.io/docs. So I'm on Mac, so I've already done that. Let me bring up my IDE. And this is the most basic K6 script. I've got an import statement here and a default function that just is comprised of one GET request. But I think that's a little too simple for our use case, because I actually want to simulate a real user that is querying a database for a particular Pokemon. So I would use a script more like this. So now it's the same function here with the same request for Pikachu, but for one thing I have these checks here that checks for the response code that is returned by this request. I'm checking to make sure it's 200. And I'm also checking the response body for the text Pikachu in the response. This is a think time that I'm adding just to space out the requests a bit and make it seem like a real user that's waiting for requests. And then I'm running this over 5 minutes with 5 users. So let me just show you what that looks like in my terminal here. So once K6 is installed, all you need to do is run K6 run simple.js. That's the name of this script that I've got here. And this is now running locally, as you can see here. And we'll also see how many virtual users are up. We see that all 5 are now up, and then it begins to count how many interruptions are going. Now, this would normally run for 5 minutes, but I don't want to wait for 5 minutes, so I'm just going to stop that here. And this is what we get as output. Now, this is just if we're running locally. We do get this wall of text, but probably what most of the time you're going to be looking for is this HTTP rec duration, which is the response time. So you'd look at the average response time, and if you're only interested in looking at the response time for requests that passed, then you'd look at this one, so where the expected response was returned. So that's how to run it locally, but the cool thing about K6 is, although K6 OSS is the free and open source software, and you can actually run up to 40,000 users just on a single machine, depending on the scenario that you're testing. A cool way to extend it and ramp it up and be able to select different geographical regions is by using K6 Cloud. So let me show you how to do that. Now, normally you would have to do a K6 login cloud, which will ask you for your credentials and your API token, but I already have that going. So once that's set up, then there are 2 ways to do it. One is you can just run it locally and have your results output to the cloud. So that would still be K6 run and then the test name, but then you're adding this output flag and you say cloud. And when I start that running, you'll see that the location is still local, but now there's a link for the output to view the output in the cloud. So let's just click on that. And now we're being taken to my K6 account. We can see the simple.js here. So let's click on that. This is the test that's running still locally, as you can see here. But now we get a lot more feedback rather than just the output from the console. So sometimes this can be useful if you very quickly want to be able to see real-time metrics without having to set anything up. So still though, we're running locally, and let me show you how to just run it on the cloud. So to do that, we do K6 cloud now, and still the same file. This time, instead of running on this machine, it's actually K6 is transferring those scripts over to the cloud and running it on our AWS servers. So this is why it's taking a little bit longer to start up, because it is provisioning those machines from scratch, making sure that the right version of K6 is on there, and also transferring over the script and the CSV file that I'm using that's being transferred over to the cloud. Looks like it has started now. Well, it's 15 seconds into it. So let's have a look at that. We'll go back to this project, and that is the new one now that is currently running. Should say, yeah, so now it says that this is running from Ashburn. So as you can see, it's pretty easy to switch back and forth between the two different modes of K6. So it's K6 OSS if you just want to do some troubleshooting maybe, or have a simpler use case, and it's K6 Cloud if you want to either ramp up to tens of thousands over several geographical regions, or you just want to see the cool dashboard. And now I want to show you what this has to do with Grafana. So there are two ways to integrate K6 with Grafana. The first is the K6 Data Source plugin. It sets up K6 Cloud in particular as a data source in Grafana, and it works with any instance of Grafana, but it doesn't work with K6 OSS. The second way to integrate is Prometheus Remote Write. K6 doesn't yet expose load testing results in Prometheus format, although we're working on that. But this way lets you utilize the remote write feature of Prometheus to effectively push the results to Prometheus anyway. That works for K6 OSS and K6 Cloud, and with any instance of Prometheus. So let me show you how both of these two integrations work. First is the K6 Cloud Data Source plugin. Let me go here. Okay, so what you need to do is go to the K6 Cloud Data Source plugin on the Grafana marketplace, and then click install plugin. So mine is already installed, but you'll be able to choose which one. You'll have to be signed in as well, and then you can install it on there. Now, when you already have it installed, you'll just have to go to configuration and then data sources, which is the screen that I'm already in, and then do search for K6. It should show up there. And then it'll ask you for an API token. So what that means is you have to go into your K6 Cloud account. Now I won't do it so that I don't expose my API token to everybody, but you just go to your account settings and click API token. You copy the string that's there and paste it here, and then you can then save and test. But before you exit out of this, I would also suggest that you go to dashboards and then import these two dashboards, because that way you just have it up and running really quickly. So let me show you what that looks like. So this is the list of all of your test results. So you can also select the project. I think we were running on default before. And yeah, it was simple JS. It's actually still running. Is that right? Yeah, it's got a little less than 2 minutes to go. So where were we? There. Oops, this one. So then we see the list of all the things that I've run for this project and this script before. And let's go into the one that's currently running. We click on that. This is the other dashboard that we saw. Click zoom to data. And we don't have any threshold data yet because the test is still running. But we already have the response times. Looks like there was a spike. Still just over a second. We have the checks over here that we can see, and the transactions. So both the 200 and the 301 that's being returned. So this is a really good way of just being able to get up to speed really quickly with what's happening on K6 and seeing that in Grafana. So I like it because there's not really much, you don't have to create your own dashboards. I do want to show you what the thresholds look like too, though. So let me do that. This is another test that I ran previously. That shows throughput and response time. And now you see what it looks like when those thresholds have been populated. So that's after the test. And you see that all 4 of them pass. So this is just a nice dashboard to have if you're already monitoring your other metrics on other dashboards in Grafana. It's kind of nice to have, this interface be replicated over here in Grafana. Okay. So to head back, the next thing that we're going to look at is the Prometheus Remote Write extension. That's also on K6 Cloud. Now, there are 2 ways right now to use the Prometheus Remote Write extension. One, and they both require K6 Cloud for now. So the first way is through the UI, and that's the one that I'm going to show you. But there is also a way that you can just put a code snippet into your script that identifies basically your Prometheus URL and your API, your key. So heading back to K6 Cloud. On K6 Cloud, you just go to the Cloud APM screen. And I already have Grafana Cloud set up, but you'd create a new configuration. You'll see something like this. And you can use any other provider, but obviously the one that you're probably interested in if you're in this meetup is Grafana Cloud. So then you have the option to select which metrics are going to be available for this integration. So we have a bunch of them already here, but the reason that we allow you to put in more is to be able to fine tune what exactly you're looking at. And because K6 also allows you to create your own custom metrics, you can create one and then make sure in the configuration that you're also checking for it. And you can decide whether you need to have the run ID set for every metric as well. Here's where you would put your remote write URL. Let me show you where to get that. If you go to my account on Grafana Cloud, then you'll go to Prometheus here and click on details. And then you'll see this information. You'll need the remote write endpoint is what you're going to copy over to that K6 Cloud page. You'll need your username, and you're going to have to generate an API key. And you put all of that information here, and you click Save. So that's going to save your configurations just to anybody that's on your organization, but you're still going to need to select when you want to use that and enable that on a test-by-test basis, because you may not want, if you're just doing like a shakeout test, you may not necessarily want that cluttering up the results on your dashboard. So let me show you how to do that. So this is the test builder of K6. It's like a graphical UI. It's a graphical way to create a load test, but this will also work for scripts that you put in. So see, you can click script here and you've got all of those details there as well. Of course, you can add requests if you want here, but let's go to the Cloud APM section. And there's Grafana Cloud, so you can enable that or disable that, and then you can go ahead and run that. So then we can save and run that. So this is when it's doing the same thing that we saw in the CLI, except this time we fired it off from the UI. And this cool little animation is just showing that all of those scripts are being moved over to the new load generator on AWS cloud, on our cloud. So I think that K6 Cloud is really handy for instances where you don't really want to set up your own infrastructure and you just want to be able to get started without any monthly commitments, without worrying about the quota that you have to set with AWS. And that quickly, we're already getting results from the test. This one was a 20 virtual user test. Can see the requests here. You can also look at more charts here. You can add charts actually if there's something in particular that you are interested in, and that creates another graph that you can also add to comparison here, except this one doesn't have. I probably should have chosen another one, but you get the idea. Let's have a look though at what that looks like, because the Prometheus Remote Write plugin does something else. So it doesn't come with any ready-made dashboards, but here's what it looks like. So you just select the Prometheus for your Grafana Cloud on here as the data source, and then it's only K6 that I've got set up for this one. So it's all K6 metrics, so you can select what you've got. So this is just the one that I did. Let's head back out. This is for a test that I ran previously, but we can definitely check out the test that we're running right now. So let's just say the last 5 minutes, that should work. Yep, that makes sense. So that was like a minute ago. So this is our test, 20 users, 1 iteration per second so far, with a response time of 5.72 seconds. At least that was the last one. So these are 2 different ways to use, to integrate Grafana with K6. Okay, so the question is, when should you use the K6 data source plugin, and when should you use Prometheus Remote Write? Well, the K6 data source plugin is better for recreating K6 Cloud dashboards, and if you like what you see already on K6 Cloud, then this is the easiest way of just bringing that experience over to Grafana. If you have many past tests that you ran before integrating with Grafana, then this is the better way to bring all of that over without having to rerun them again. It's good because it comes with a pre-built dashboard, so it's probably the fastest way. And Prometheus Remote Write is better if you're load testing with K6 OSS and not K6 Cloud. I didn't show that way for the sake of time, but you can output K6 results to Telegraph, which will then forward the metrics to Prometheus. We're also working on an integration, an extension that will do this without having to go through Telegraph, but that's going to be a few weeks out yet. But it's very close. It's also good for incorporating K6 into a stack that already uses Prometheus. That way you'll have your load testing results where the rest of your metrics are too. And then if you're utilizing multiple APM providers that already use Prometheus, this is the way for you. I think that Prometheus Remote Write is probably the easiest setup if you're using both Grafana Cloud and K6 Cloud. Whichever way you choose, using K6 and Grafana together helps you get a better idea into the inner workings of your application. So K6 and Grafana gets you both sides of the puzzle, an observability tool stack to see what's happening, and a testing tool to generate the data. And that is it. We're out of time, so just in time as well. Feel free to ask me any questions if you have any that occur to you right now. Otherwise, here's a list of resources that might be helpful.